Hello, everyone. Thanks for giving us your time today. I'm Ian Hamilton, and this is VR Download. I'm joined here today by David Heaney from Northern Ireland, who has just come back from his secret project. Very, very, very good to see you, David Heaney. It feels like forever. Why don't you tell us what you've been up to?
Yeah, it's really good to be back. If you don't read our website, you won't know what I'm up to, but if you do, you definitely will. So I spent the last few months completely rebuilding UploadVR's website from the ground up, and we focused on a much better reader experience, faster loading, a cleaner design, and also we fixed a lot of things behind the scenes so that we can write our articles faster with less technical issues in the way. We've also introduced Upload VR membership, which lets you support us directly instead of viewing the programmatic ads and gives you the ability to give your take below the article in a way that's not like a separate comment section differently styled in a little white box. It's a full first class take with the same font size and prominence that our article itself is below. So we'd really appreciate if you'd support us directly and become an Upload VR member. But if not, our website will continue to be free and supported by programmatic ads.
Yeah, huge change for us there, and it's really meaningful to me personally when I see new members joining us and supporting us. I've put this out elsewhere, but I really do feel like direct support of journalism is the best way to sort of get what you want rather than having people guided by other motivations like clicks and things like that. You know, we have always worked very hard to be aware of pursuing our interests relative to what the analytics are telling us. Hopefully, this moment allows us to, not pay attention to the analytics so much and just pursue what interests us a lot more. And I've been a big admirer of all the journalism organizations out there, all the individuals who are out there on Patreon and other places getting direct support for their work. Um, so yeah, big moment for us, and thank you so much for doing it. You don't see it as readers out there, but he completely redid the back end, and it's the cleanest writing experience that I've ever had in oh gosh, decades now of journalism. Right, I've been doing this a long time. I've been through CMSs that were built for newspaper organizations that were the most nightmarish things you could possibly imagine, having to port information to multiple places, and it's just amazing on the back end to put out our thoughts. And the very first thing that I put into that new website was one of the things we'll get into today. Are we ready to get into our news?
Yeah, we definitely are. And like you said, it isn't just a redesign. What we did was an entire kind of rebuild from scratch. So, yeah, we're really, really excited about the future and we can't wait to keep bringing you articles. I'm excited myself to be able to very soon get back to writing. I'm just kind of fixing a few of the expected launch week bugs, but that's nearly over. And then I can get back to focusing on the writing. And obviously, I'm already back here on this show. It hasn't actually been that long. It's only been 3 weeks, according to my last count, but it does feel like a very long time. And I'm excited to be back here. It's great to talk about the news here.
Well, it's weird because I've traveled twice since I think we were last together, and it feels like after being through 3 years of COVID, sort of pandemic stuff, to do that much travel in such a small amount of time, it feels like a time warp situation. It reminds me of the time before when VR news was happening all the time, and you had to go to a bunch of conferences. I saw some great comments here just supporting us. Thank you so much. Thank you for everyone who supports us on YouTube as well. We will one of the things that's great about having Heaney back, his focus on content production, is we're going to have more cool things to discuss that are like from his specific voice, his specific set of analysis back in the studio in the coming weeks. And one of the things that we've been talking about is trying to improve the sort of all overall production quality here. I think there's a lot we can do with our viewers out there to move along this show in different ways. But Pico 4 US launch reportedly halted due to a TikTok hearing. What is going on here, Heaney?
Yeah, so Pico seemed to be hinting at something big happening back at GDC. And, they gave a date of a Wednesday, but it came along to that date and absolutely nothing was announced, at least nothing that I'm aware of. And obviously people were wondering what's happened here. So Pico 4, if you're not aware, it's really the first true competitor to Quest 2. It's very similar in that it's powered by the same processor. It's it's the same kind of device, a standalone headset with two hand controllers that uses the Snapdragon XR2 chip, but it actually has a lot of superior hardware like pancake lenses and higher resolution screens and independently adjustable IPD, and it's a lot smaller and lighter. It feels in many ways like, a Quest 2 Slim, but it's only available in certain Asian countries and Europe. It's not sold in North America. So this hint comes in, and then it's reported that the reason that this didn't happen, that this headset did not come to the US on that date and may not for the foreseeable future, is all of this US regulatory and congressional scrutiny around TikTok. So if you're not aware, ByteDance, the Chinese tech giant, is the company that owns TikTok and Pico. Well, it doesn't own TikTok; it's behind TikTok. TikTok is one of their products, but one of its subsidiaries is Pico. It purchased Pico, acquired Pico in 2021, and before that, Pico was just a leading independent standalone headset maker. A lot of people aren't aware Pico actually shipped a standalone headset before Meta. They had the Pico Goblin out there a year before, a year or two before Oculus Go. So they have been around for a long time. They are now trying very hard to compete with Quest 2 in those markets. But this scrutiny around TikTok, where US politicians are trying to make sure that it doesn't send data back to the Chinese government, or that the Chinese government doesn't have an influence in the algorithm so that they can shape cultural discussion. That's something that is obviously led uh, ByteDance to not launch what is essentially a device with five cameras and two microphones in the same time. I don't think that would be a great look for them if a congressman or a senator, I'm not sure which it is, pulls out uh, Pico 4 and points to the five cameras, shows the color pass through and says, okay, so where's that data going? It's obviously, VR is seemingly quite important for ByteDance, but I don't think it's important enough to compromise the possibility of making sure that TikTok stays in the US market.
Interesting, interesting, interesting. Yeah, I do feel like I should get some credit. I think there's an audio transcript where I raised this possibility on our show sometime in the past, and it seemed kind of unlikely. Was like the consensus I think at the time, and it's still like it hasn't happened, right? So it still seems unlikely to a certain extent, but it is sort of an active concern that's not going away. And I do like your vivid imagery there of exactly the photo that would be on the front of newspapers everywhere would be this VR headset in an active hearing. We ready to move on to the next subject? Do you see any comments you want to address right now?
Well, the last thing I point out is about the prospect of it never happening. That's kind of what we already have in the smartphone market. So, Huawei and Xiaomi phones are actually very popular in Europe, and there are many countries in Europe where those are sold by carriers all over Europe. Those Huawei and Xiaomi phones, and the same phones are actually banned in the US. You know, you can import them in certain scenarios, but they don't have the correct US frequency band, so they won't work fully. And that may just be a situation that continues in the future where Europe is not exactly anything close to an ally of China, but they're at least much more tolerant of Chinese products than the US seems. The US, in the current political climate and for the foreseeable future, may just want to keep these Chinese consumer tech devices out of their market. You're muted. Ian, you're muted.
Of course, they're filling the bingo card. We are there on this show. Yeah, very, very good analysis there. And it feels really good to see in the comments everyone sort of missing the show being back. I honestly, at one of these events I went to selfishly was asked, what am I enjoying in VR right now? And I do think of this studio as like one of my favorite things to do. And when I explain it to people, it sounds so simple, but like we have zero locomotion. So it would be, by definition, one of the most comfortable experiences in VR. And then we spend, an hour or two just diving into the stuff as deeply as possible. And it's just like, if it's missing in if your day out there as our viewers or our readers, it's missing in our day as well. Um,
Yeah, I'm obviously biased about this and not to toot my own horn, but I think what I like about this app, again, I'm the developer, so I would say this, but is the low friction. There are many other apps you can do this kind of thing on, but we load into this experience in 10 seconds. There's no codes, there's no invites, there's no anything. I just open the app, click on the Geo Studio, and we're in here, and everything's ready to go. That's why we use this, and we'll probably continue to for quite a while until another piece of software not only has all this functionality, but has that really low friction.
Yep, yep, yep. And we will get to some of this later in the show as we discuss uh exactly that, right? Like that is a significant thing. And honestly, two of our biggest stories today are this from two different fronts. But let's get into the next subject here before we get to those big ones. Quest Pro got local dimming for Link, and a third-party tool will bring foveated rendering for some OpenXR games. This is obviously something you know intimately. Why don't you get into it, David?
Yeah, so in the past few weeks, the Quest Pro has really significantly improved its prospects as a PC VR headset. So when you're connecting it to your PC to play Steam VR or Oculus Rift games via a link cable or via AirLink through your router or via VR AirBridge, that D-Link $100 adapter, you now get local dimming. And in case you're not aware what local dimming is, it essentially normal LCD screens like you'd see in the Quest 2 have a couple of backlights at most, and so they illuminate the entire display. But Quest Pro's displays actually have 500 backlighting regions. And so this local dimming allows them to use all those regions so that if the right side of your screen is supposed to be really dark and certain elements are dark, it can turn those backlights all.
Oh, it looks like we just lost David Heaney. Let's see if that looks that way on the stream. It does. I'm seeing Jack say that AirBridge
I'm
doesn't work
back.
on. Oh, you're back? Wait, hold on. I want to talk about Jack.
Sorry,
AirBridge
you're
doesn't
absolutely
work on
right
the Pico. I want to
on the
also say
Pro.
that that's okay because it doesn't work on the Quest Pro either.
Yeah, that's what they said on the Jack B says on the Pro. Yeah, it's correct. That doesn't my correction exactly. That's
Oh, I
for
misread that. Yeah, I misread that. I thought I was talking about Pico. Yeah, all right, sorry.
yeah. Yeah. So if you're using Link or AirLink, this will work. You now get that local dimming. So it's not all the way to OLED. On OLED, every single pixel is its own backlight. There is no backlight. Every single pixel can illuminate itself all the way from fully bright to fully dark. And that's why you get that incredible infinite contrast on OLED displays. The Quest Pro's display is an LCD. They are LCD displays, but with these mini LED backlights, these 500 backlight zones. And beforehand, you didn't get that on Link, so it would act as if it was one giant backlight, as if a normal LCD, which is obviously just a huge waste of a $1,000 or $1,500 product. And now you get that local dimming. Simultaneously, there is, as Ian mentioned, this third-party tool, OpenXR Toolkit, which is added support for foveated rendering. So in certain games like Flight Simulator, like Elite Dangerous, if you use Open Composite, another tool, there is a bit of manual work here. You can get that local dimming, and I obviously got this working in Elite Dangerous using Open Composite and OpenXR Toolkit, and it is incredible. You miss those true black colors, that true darkness in something like Elite in space when you're using these LCD headsets like Index or Quest 2 or Reverb G2. But you know, yes, it's not OLED. It's not OLED. This is about halfway between. I'd always describe this mini LED as a middle ground between LCD and OLED.
Yeah, I saw a comment here from Thomas Ireland. Quest Pro, or Quest Failure, as everyone calls it, is dead. Meta will release a high-end device next year. So we've got some indications that the next Quest Pro is probably not right around the corner, right?
Yeah, if you've watched our show a few weeks ago, and you can look on the UploadVR website, if you actually go to the homepage and scroll down, you'll see it in the latest future tech section, the article we're talking about. There was a report from The Verge where they looked at Meta's roadmap, and it appears that next Quest Pro that was supposed to come in 2024 has actually been shelved in favor of a much more advanced model that is coming much later. So the Quest Pro may be around for quite a while. Although, as we've said on this show many times, as I will repeat, I don't think most people should buy one. And I think you should really just wait for Quest 3, which is coming out later this year, probably around October, because it will have a twice as powerful chip. It will not have the eye and face tracking, so you won't get things like, foveated rendering. It will not, it will, well, it will probably not have local dimming, as in it will probably not be mini LED, although I have no information to say either way about that. So the features we're talking about here will not actually be available on Quest Pro or on Quest 3, sorry. So it may turn out that if you're using primarily PC VR, the Quest Pro could actually be the net better headset for you. but then the Quest 3 is obviously going to have a lot better features when it comes to standalone. Obviously, Quest 3 is not out yet, and we only have very limited information, so that's all just mostly speculation for now.
All just mostly, yeah. It's funny. We don't have a discovered headset in the hallway yet to point to, but we do have a lot of sort of hints as to what this device is going to be, with that chip kind of like weighing on everyone's heads. Like, is that chip worth it? And we haven't seen what software can really take advantage of that new chipset. And I think once we see that, things are gonna change in people's heads pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think another prospect for PC VR is that Quest 3's chip may be able to do a lot higher bitrate compression. It may also support Wi-Fi 7. So when you combine those two things together, uh, we have a commenter here, Sherzad, asking why we can't get a native DisplayPort connection for PC headsets. I suspect because in the coming years, compression bit rates will get so high, the algorithms used, the codecs will get so good, and the Wi-Fi transfer speeds will be so fast that the vast majority of people simply won't want to. You'll get wireless that has 90 or 95% of the same image quality as wired, and almost everyone is going to take the wireless choice in that solution. Though of course there will always be a small subsection of enthusiasts who prefer wired, just as there always is for all technology types. But I'd point out that people in the past said that they would never use a wired console controller. There were many people who were adamant about that for the first years of the Xbox 360 and PS3. And when's the last time you saw someone use a wired console controller these days?
Yeah. Hello, Alucard from the Dominican Republic. I love seeing everyone telling us where they're tuning in from. It really brings home the power of VR to be able to broadcast from virtual reality on a global scale. Really, really cool. Are we ready to talk about Apple next?
Yeah, let's talk about that Apple event.
Yeah. So the Apple event is coming, and all indications seem to be lining up that we're going to see the headset there. The reporting is turning into kind of a fire. Lots of little hints here and there. I have hit up all my sources that have gone to Apple over the years to tell them to reach out to their PR representatives to tell them, invite Upload VR to the event. It's funny. I think about this a lot, Heaney, about our like size as an organization, right? VR isn't necessarily big enough to be on Apple's radar. AR is, but that's not, like, that doesn't say anything about what we do or the quality of our reporting. And if we don't actually get to go hands on or see this first off, we'll still cover it just like everything else. So, like we'll get to Apple coverage when we get to Apple coverage. Though I would love to be in one of those first hands on moments to really see this device. But even if we don't, we'll cover all the apps and all the features as quickly as we possibly can. Um,
Yeah, and we'll
it's
obviously
been
purchase one.
yeah, I know. Yeah, I joked when we originally started hearing about the prices here that it's getting close to a down payment on a house. How significant it is, and that's like we've talked on and on about the sort of history of computing, and the original first computers back in the first personal computers back in the 80s were up in that price range. Um, and yeah, it's quite a big moment, right? We've heard this rumored for years, and there is going to be a not insubstantial part of our audience who thinks that this is going to get pulled at the last minute and get sent off to the land of dead products.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people still don't even believe it's happening. There are so many sources now saying that this is going to happen at WWDC. There are people who have even, pulled out some of the pre-release code from iOS 17, and it's littered with references to new AR features and SDKs. Beyond any of the rest of the updates, by far, it's the most significant. We have Bloomberg's Mark Gurman repeating his claim that this is going to be the star of the show at WWDC, which is in early June. In case anyone doesn't know, it's Apple's yearly developer conference. This headset is obviously being rumored for many, many years. And some of the reporting has indicated that that's because the entire product changed from being a thin client for a wireless console into a fully standalone headset. And that obviously delayed the project by years and years and years. And, I understand the skepticism here. And I understand if you're sitting here right now thinking, there is no such thing as an Apple headset. This is all nonsense. But I would say we are probably pretty level-headed reporters. We aren't the kind of people that get caught up in crazy speculation based on a couple of disparate facts. And I think we are fairly confident to say that Apple at least plans to release a headset this year, and this does seem to be very real based on how many sources are reporting it.
Yeah, and I have no sourcing whatsoever. I've tried to ask. They all go silent, and awkwardly enough, I think I have to address this. I just started dating an Apple employee, and it has nothing to do with the fact that this is happening, but I have to bring that up because I met her first in your studio, David Heaney, and that is also very awkward. So I'm going to put that out there with our audience that that happened, and that is a thing. And it'll put if I write any articles about Apple, I will be noting that in the articles about Apple. I think, but everyone is laughing out there. Yeah, I think it was important to disclose that. But let's
Ian just
move
wanted to announce
on.
he had a girlfriend. That was it. There's
Yeah,
no
no, that was
evidence.
the whole reason. No, I think I had legitimate reasons to actually get into that, right? Like I feel like it was necessary. We ready to talk
Yeah,
about
that's something.
PlayStation VR 2?
Yeah, that is something obviously to disclose. Jokes aside, but yes, let's discuss that PlayStation VR 2 report. Probably the most controversial piece of VR news in the past few months. There have been some extremely heated views and opinions and takes on this report.
Yeah, and I'm gonna push back at you on the next one when we get to the active user base over Quest. But yeah, we're talking about PlayStation VR 2's launch sales supposedly disappointing according to IDC analysts. And I'll let you explain this first, and I've got my responses because I've been talking to various people in the industry about this very subject, and I've been using your line about the soft launch. Right? Is this a soft launch for the PSVR 2? And are a lot of people getting it wrong out there about that?
Yeah, I think so. So, just for context, if anyone isn't aware of the story here, this analyst firm, IDC, their sort of supply chain and market analysts, have come up with this figure of PlayStation VR 2 selling less than 300,000 units in its launch month. And that's supposed to be a lot shorter than what Sony was looking for. Sony was apparently looking for, on the order of 1 to 2 million. And again, this is all just being reported through Bloomberg, which IDC provided these apparent figures to. And IDC have called this disappointment in that Bloomberg article, and they've said, this headset needs some sort of uh, imminent price cut to be successful. But as we've pointed out, the PlayStation VR 1 took quite a few months to sell significant numbers of units. This headset is just launched. We don't have anywhere near enough information to know yet whether this headset is successful or not. It's going to take time. By all accounts, this is probably actually the fastest selling wired VR headset ever, as in, a non standalone headset that tethers to some sort of console. And around that soft launch idea, this is one of the only Sony PlayStation gaming major products that launch in the early part of the year. Almost all of the PlayStations in history, with a very few exceptions, have launched just before the holiday season to obviously, maximize that launch window sales when people, the hype is still fresh and it's coming up to Christmas and other holidays where people give gifts. Um, Vargo Soft is asking, I thought 2 million was the product run for the first year. No, according to Bloomberg's earlier report, that 2 million units is what was produced for the launch window. So, again, that's all. None of this has been confirmed by Sony. The only thing Sony ever said about this was that they responded that they have not cut production numbers. They did not say anything about projections. They just said that they did not, or sales, they just said they did not cut production numbers in response to that. So, that could mean a lot. But yeah, there are still plenty of PSVR games that haven't been ported over here. Skyrim VR, Star Wars Squadron, some of the biggest games haven't been ported over. Maybe they never will. It's to judge the performance of this product, we need to see how well it does this holiday season. We need to see what kind of games does Sony put out. How is it marketed? This product is still not actually even available in most retailers. You cannot go into a store in most countries and even buy this thing yet. And, I do think that argument for a price cut is possible. I do think that this is overpriced. You can't, the vast majority of PlayStation 5 owners, the idea of an accessory more expensive than the console itself is completely insane. If you ask the typical PS5 owner, will you buy this? Their first response is price. Go and ask some people who are outside the VR bubble, but would maybe be interested what they think. And that's what they'll tell you. This headset is, I don't think there's any strong reason to believe that this thing has to be $550. I think Sony is probably making a healthy margin there. And I think over time, if they want to expand this market and make this a success, they probably will have to bring that down. But that's not unique to Sony. We saw earlier in the year, Meta cut the Quest Pro from $1,500 to $1,000. The original Rift went from $800 with touch down to $350 over its lifestyle. It's not the end of the world if that have to happen. If Sony does have a price cut, it's not a
So,
failure. It would be a good thing.
I'm gonna throw out this random idea I had while you were chatting. I mean, like, would you ever think they would take it all the way down to free with bundled with a PS5?
No, that's
You think
that's
that's too much?
I mean, it does have a production cost and
I know it
component
has a
cost.
production cost, but I'm talking about if you're investing in a platform, we're talking about what 7 years ago or something that Samsung was bundling Gear VRs with uh with phones. Why wouldn't it's a phone is a
So
$1,000 device. I mean, and I know that's another 500 for the device, but it's like I guess I'm wondering how much does it like if it gets down to $300, that's bigger, but it's still not the same as like we're investing in this as the future of the Sony brand. Like I would take that bet if you're going to move. Like it's a different thing. Like Gear VR that failed. They took it down to free, and that thing still wasn't commonly used. I think the PSVR 2 is going to be more commonly used than that.
right, but the Gear VR was a plastic shell with some basic aspheric lenses and a gyroscope in it. This is a full-fledged headset with dual HDR OLED panels, eye tracking, vibration, two controllers with high fidelity haptics. The production cost of this thing is in the hundreds of dollars.
Is PS5 at the right time in its product cycle for a price cut for itself?
Probably not at the current moment. I
Okay.
don't think that's the limitation there. But the headset, I think, will have to come down quickly. I just think psychologically, it being higher than the console is a big barrier. If it's even $50 or $100 lower than the console, that completely changes what it is in people's minds. I think they could easily get this thing down to 350, and I think that's going to be the real sweet spot. The real, obviously, the psychological changer that all of these companies go for, that's where Nintendo put the Switch, where Meta originally put the Quest 2, is $300. When you get below 299, is John Carmack has talked about this before. There is a phase shift in sales that is much greater than the cut would make you think. But I don't think with HDR OLED panels we're going to get there.
Yeah. So uh, I was thinking about my demo that I had. We don't typically get into gaming news too much on the show, and I don't typically write gaming stuff too often because my interest is sort of the larger trends at play. But I did try Firewall Ultra on PSVR 2, and that game took huge advantage of the displays to give you like areas where you really felt like you could hide in. You really feel like you're like really looking in the dark at these enemy teams coming at you. And then there was this feature that you and I uniquely sort of went and experienced at SIGGRAPH last year, where we got to see the OLED displays that are in the prototype phase, research phase only, out of Meta. They produced, one for research purposes, not a path to a consumer product. But we both sort of squinted, our eyes squinted, looking at a light directly into a virtual light that felt real because the brightness was so much higher than everything else on our displays. And conveying that to our audience who haven't actually seen an HDR display is a hard thing to get across. Well, in Firewall Ultra, they have this feature where flashlights are super bright, and I'm holding this gun that has a flashlight at the bottom. I'm looking down the barrel really dangerously, right? And they're using Unreal Engine 5, and I'm getting this light beam directly into my eyes that feels incredible. It reminded me of what we saw last year. I know it's not the same display performance, but I was brought back to that moment just a few months after we had it in the research phase. I felt like I had experienced some semblance of that on the PS5 system. And that's a team-based tactical shooter with deep gameplay or tactics that you can play off with a team of four. Um, it's that game looks like the first one in a multi-year plan from Sony to build out a library. Right, they're investing in servers there, and they want it to last for years with a lot to build out. It looks like the beginning of a very long hard software story there.
Yeah, I think as our article said in our headline, Sony is almost certainly only just getting started here. I think any idea that the PSVR 2 is dead or any of those sort of overreactions to this are just far too short term in their thinking. The original PSVR was not an overnight success. Sony had to actually build up a significant library before it really started to sell. The pace of sales started to build up after a year or two when that library was there, and critically when the hardware was sold at significant discounts. There were times where you had bundles with the headset and controllers for as low as $200 or $250 at some holiday sales. That's when you see a huge numbers of people buy in. The one thing I would say here is that while I think the PlayStation VR 2's HDR OLED displays deliver that incredible experience you're talking about, and to reply to our commenter shares out here, HDR is absolutely worth it for VR. I don't know if going for a high-end headset was the right approach, or at least only going for one. I wonder how would this platform fare in the long term if Sony had decided to, instead of making the best headset within this design constraint that they could make, if they taken a different approach and tried to make a headset that cost $200 or $250, and then over time you get this huge percentage of PlayStation 5 owners own it, maybe over in the longer term something like a quarter or a third if you have it 200 or 250. Maybe that's something that could happen in future. Maybe we could see a PSVR 2 Lite come out for those people. Maybe you could also get a PSVR 2 Pro, but obviously that's a lot of hardware that Sony would have to then put out.
Well, all right. So let me talk about the other element of that demo that was interesting. That was that demo from Firewall. I met David Jagno. May he rest in peace. He's the PR rep for First Contact now, and I interviewed him, which was very weird to do as well. And what he was talking about with us with Firewall was that they're using eye tracking for tactical purposes, more or less, is the way I understood it, where you can hypothetically close your eyes and avoid the effects of a flashbang grenade, or avoid those effects of the flashlight being pointed right into your eyes. And it's a fascinating, uh, really cool new thing that they were doing, where like the animation, like when the flashbang goes off, the software takes over and shows you a few seconds of stunned white screen, where you could look around all you want, but all you're seeing is being whited out. And that's like a powerful effect when you combine it with the HDR, right? So you've got this gameplay element that you can cover up your hands to block light, or you can simply, your eyes are quite literally the controller. And until you sort of play for a couple hours where you realize your eyes are actually influencing your gaming experience, it's one of those things that you won't grasp how important it is.
Just seeing a comment here from Vexner. Thank you so much for the $20 contribution. Vexner says, we have what most VR enthusiasts want: eye tracking, face tracking, standalone full body tracking, hand and suit haptics, the size of Bigscreen beyond, the field of view of Pimax, and the pixel density of Vario. When will we get a full featured VR headset, even with crazy cost? So that's a really interesting question. You're not going to get the size of Bigscreen beyond with the field of view of Pimax, even at any price. There is no price for which you can purchase that, because the display technology and optics simply do not exist today. You cannot get
So
that field of view in a headset of that size.
It's a fascinating question with that it covers so much ground. The way I would respond to it is we're due for so Magic Leap 2 and Magic Leap 1 have this external box, right? This external corded processor box to get as much weight off the head as possible, and you run the wire from your uh, side up to the headset. It's been standing alone as this startup company with, making this particular design trade-off, right? Like there's others, I guess, but they're not of the magnitude that Magic Leap is sort of going at it from. The latest rumors that we've heard about Apple are the same thing, right? That they're going to potentially
N-
they're going to put the
no,
battery down there. Everything else is up there,
yeah,
right? Yeah,
it's
so
yes. The rumors that
close.
the battery will be there. Well,
Yeah,
it's
close.
pretty different.
So a similar split design, though. What I'm
Okay,
getting at.
okay.
And so when we're looking at this question of all of these different things that everyone really wants, right? PPD, wide field, wider field of view than we have today, and super light like beyond. When you do the split design, you get more like sort of options for what to do with the headset. Is all I'm trying to say.
Sure, you do in some ways, but when you think about it, the split design doesn't have to be in a puck like that. If it's the battery that you're doing, you do what Quest Pro did, and you put the battery at the back or Pico 4. In those situations, you're saving every bit of design at the actual front box. But getting wide field of view in a headset that is as tiny as Big Screen Beyond is it's a fundamental physics problem. There are no optic display systems today that are capable of it at all. You have to either choose one for now. The most we've seen in compact headsets is something like Pico 4, where that's still significantly bigger than Big Screen Beyond, and you get something like 105-degree field of view, horizontal and vertical. For all those other features, it does sound like Pimax is trying to deliver those in their product. They want to have everything you've said there, uh, except for hand and suit haptics and the size of Beyond. But to answer the question, when will we get that? Probably, I would say someone will do it in the later half of this decade. It does seem like there is enough advancement in the fundamental display technology and optics that it should be possible, but expect it to come even higher than the Apple headset. Something maybe $5,000 or $10,000. The highest end headset you can get today is that Virgin Ears headset the X-Tal 3, which gives you like a full human field of view. Your entire field of view is encapsulated and a very high resolution, but it's still the same size as Pimax. It's absolutely enormous hammerhead
You know,
headset, and that is $10,000.
so one thing I suppose I should reply to Vexner's there is what they're describing is it's pretty close to what HTC has put together with the XR Elite's ecosystem with the new self-tracking accessory. So, I mean, I did a demo with the trackers attached to my feet and played a soccer game, and like that's been technically possible for a very very long time, but actually doing it in you know the way I was with that much being wireless was a it still felt great. It still felt great to kick the soccer ball, but having that work at uh I don't know, the level to support a real consumer game community is is another question separate to is there like experiential reasons to show this off for 30 minutes at a time in a location-based VR place. But like I still want to point it out as pretty close to full body tracking with a slim visor setup and all these other things that they're asking for there.
Yeah, so we do plan to have an XR Elite review next month, but the first thing I would say about XR Elite is I don't think it has the field of view that enthusiasts want. It still suffers from that fundamental problem of all of these compact headsets, be it the Shift All Megane X, be it the Big Screen Beyond, be it the Vive Flow, be it the XR Elite. Nobody has yet figured out how to deliver a field of view that is even Quest Pro and Pico 4 level in a headset that small yet. And that's something that a lot of enthusiasts simply don't want to compromise on.
Yeah, and it's I went back and forth with this with Big Screen, right? I discussed this. I've got basically a 2-hour recording. We'll get into it in a few more, where I was talking to the CEO over there, about sort of this thing, right? Like everyone wants to be about the field of view of a Quest, but getting the enthusiasts out there, the people like, even not the enthusiast, it's like it really does feel like a large majority of the audience out there does not want to take a single step back, even by a degree, from where we are on like current Quest 2, Quest Pro
Yeah.
stats. They
Well,
want to they want it to go the other direction.
yeah, Quest 2 is the minimum, I think. Quest 2 is the absolute minimum. And with Quest Pro, you get an extra 5 or 10 degrees, and that's great. And with Pico 4, you do. Pico 4 and Quest Pro go in the right direction. And field of view is fundamental to what VR is. That is what really separates it from other display mediums. Yes, you have the tracking and the controllers, and you have the 3D aspect, but when it comes to what you're actually seeing in front of you, the reason you feel like you're in a virtual environment is because you are encapsulated by it in some sense. You're not just seeing a little square in front of you that shows you a little kind of peek through to a virtual world. You're in the virtual world. And every time I tried headsets that expand the field of view, some of them have massive compromises to do that. They distort the side of it. But the first time I tried that Xtal 3 headset, which had this ultra wide field of view without distortion, the first headset that I'm aware of that's actually achieved that, it was magical. It really felt like trying VR again. And the immersion and feeling of actually being in another place, the fundamental point of VR, was just so much beyond any of these narrower headsets. So it is such a disappointing reality that these are directly fighting engineering constraints. Getting headsets to be smaller is so important, so you don't want to rip them off your face because they're so uncomfortable. They're a big brick on your face. But getting headsets to be wider is what makes VR actually feel magical and what's important. So we're just stuck in this problem where these are two completely opposite directions for now.
Yeah, and I do want to say thank you to Vexner again for that very nice donation. Thank you so much for supporting us. Thank you to everyone who is a member. It means a lot becoming a member here and on our site. It really affects us to know that we've got fans out there willing to support the work we do. And Vexner, you just helped us, so thank you. We ready to talk about the Quest um, active players numbers, all these stats out there? Because I'm ready to fight David Heaney about this.
Yeah. Let's talk
All
about
right.
that Wall Street Journal report.
So there was a Wall Street Journal report that had some stats that they were citing from documents they viewed, saying the Quest had 6.37 million active players around October of last year, and Beat Saber had reached 255 million in revenue. Those are significant numbers. What context do you want to add to that before I fight you?
Well, I'm curious what you want to fight me about it for. What's the
You're
disagreement we're
you're
going to
all
have
right.
here?
Specifically, we've got the rumor that we're at 20 million quests out there, right? And you frame that on Twitter as a good number for retention, and I don't know if I see it that way.
I didn't frame it as that. I said the reports of abysmal retention seem to be untrue. And, again, it's not a rumor. The Verge has claimed to have read, Alex Heath from The Verge has claimed to have seen, an internal meeting where the head of VR at Meta has said 20 million. So if we believe Alex Heath is telling the truth, then yeah, there were 20 million Quest 1, Quest 2, and Quest Pros sold, around almost 20 million. And of those, you have 6.37 million that were actively used in October. I think for what a VR headset is at this early, for the fact that Quest 2 does not come with a dock or a charging dock or anything like that, for, you know, I think that is fairly impressive. Yeah, I think if you took the percentage of PlayStation VR ones that are currently in use, and I think if you took the percentage of any PC VR headset that's currently in use, it would be significantly below that.
So, kind of a cool comment from Guy Godin, the creator of Virtual Desktop, who I believe has Virtual Desktop running on Pico. So that's a dev
Yeah.
who is spending a lot of time with the platform. And he's saying that he looked inside of his Pico 4 controllers and realized they were the same that came with the dev kit a year ago, and they're still working. I don't use them every day or play long sessions, but that's kind of impressive. So a year of battery life is yeah, wow.
Well, that's not what I've seen personally, but what I would say about controller battery is, across Quest 2 and Pico 4, they are very, very impressive. But What actually drains it, in my experience, this is just for me, is vibration. So if you're playing games that use a lot of haptics, that's what actually seems to drain down the controllers. If you don't use haptics in any of the VR apps or games you're using, these controllers do seem to last infinitely.
Oh yeah, Guy saying that was 6 million after Bone Lab launched, which was the biggest game of the year. So they're taking a peak number potentially there, in
Well,
that time
why would the
period.
Wall Street Journal be trying to get the highest number possible? It was, that
Those
seems
documents they
this was
viewed, how did they get the documents who got them to them? But yeah, no, that's
sure, but
absolutely a point.
this
It
was
could
at
be
a
a
much
random. We know
these
Christmas
were
Day
much
is going
wider
to be a bigger
context.
peak number, right? Because of just
Yeah,
the number of people opening that box.
yeah,
So definitely not a probably an annual peak, but it is a good
yeah,
point
of
that
course.
like here's a big game launch and here's the big number associated with it. Like it could give us an
I don't buy
indication
that.
of where Quest 3 is going to go this year, right?
Yeah, but like you said, I don't buy that. If you wanted to inflate the number, you would give December's number. You would give them, December. You're going to have the maximum amount of people activating it on Christmas Day and playing throughout the Christmas holidays. This was also in a much wider document release. This was only one of the figures given in this article. That give many other details, and it was in many ways critical of Meta. It wasn't. I didn't see this as a Meta puff piece, and I don't buy the idea that 6 million would have been the yearly peak at
Oh
all.
yeah, I wouldn't read it that way. I hate making too many assumptions out of single data points, right? And um yeah, we need more. And we've been going for the Steam numbers, right? We've been taking years of like looking at those vague relative figures that they give us. And it's so frustrating after all these years to still not have real usage numbers except for revenue, right? Like we
Well,
know
we
that the
no, we
platform makes money.
there is a usage number that everyone seems to have forgotten. And, for me, this was one of the most significant pieces of VR news that ever came out. It was Rec Room said that they had 3 million monthly active VR users. And they said the vast majority of that was Quest. And that was, I think, 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. So, we know that even this one platform, Rec Room, has 3 million VR active users, of which most are Quest. So, it doesn't surprise me. You can look at this in a negative way and say, around a third of Quests are in active use, or you can look at it in a positive way and say, there are more than 5 million people actively using VR, a market that standalone VR has only existed for less than 4 years now. It's a brand new market. These devices are still very early. They're still using uh, in many cases the vast majority of them are using Fresnel lenses that make them 500-gram boxes on your face. You don't have a charger dock with Quest 2, so most people when they're using this thing they have to get it out, plug it in, charge it up, download all their updates and play. The fact that 6 million people are doing that every month to me is actually a good thing.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how the Meta product line sort of goes from here. I love the context you added earlier about the accessories of having a charger built into the experience and how that can dramatically change. And that's a good transition to talk about our next subject. Is there anything in the comments you want to get to first?
Yeah, I'm just having a look at some of the comments here. Yeah, the Hardy Gets confirming that the haptic controllers in PSVR 2 and Quest Pro kill the battery at the speed of light. So yeah, just another person confirming that is what kills those VR controllers. But on most platforms, you can actually turn down the intensity of vibrations. So if you're spare of batteries or you don't want to buy batteries, just turn down the vibration.
Yeah, so let's talk about John Carmack's vision for instant VR. So there was a podcast recently with Andrew Bosworth and John Carmack. So John Carmack was the former CTO of Oculus back in the day, and then he sort of transitioned into an advisor, guidance person, advising the executives at Facebook and then Meta before he finally departed last year. And there's an hour-long podcast on Boz to the Future. That's Bosworth podcast where he's being sort of not antagonistic, but he's like pushing back at Bosworth on a variety of subjects. And if you're looking for sort of insight in how these people think about the medium, and what it almost seems to me like Bosworth is using this as a learning tool to see what the community thinks, see what Carmack thinks, and have that inform what they're thinking going forward. And at least that's how I viewed it. But are we ready? I think I'll try to play this clip here from the podcast. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. You just want to add the context, maybe you missed it, that Andrew Bosworth is the CTO of Meta.
Yeah, so this is the person making sort of most or all of the long-term technical choices, or at least recommendations directly to Zuckerberg on what to do across the board. So this is Carmack more or less pushing back on that person and saying, "This is what I think should be the focus."
Can you tear down this device and show me how it works?
If the VR experience about how tedious it was to start, or how much glitchiness there was there, or the limited availability of the things you wanted to do, if that was on your phone, what would your phone be like if you had to set up an acknowledge Guardian every time that you started it up? If you had to wait for your controllers to wake up before you could start doing inputs there? So getting to that point, not just light and cheap, but it should also be instant. You should just be able to like pull it up and put it on your head to just glance over there to look at something as easily as you would look at your watch.
All right, so that was Carmack, and probably the most interesting single comment from the whole podcast. But I do highly recommend going and having a listen to the whole thing because you can get a lot of insights there. And yeah, it helped shape some of my thinking over the last little while about this. What do you think about this, David?
Yeah, I completely agree. Friction has always been the biggest barrier to VR use, and be that in the hardware, like I was saying, the idea of having a charging dock that means the headset's always ready to go, or be it the software side. This, you boot it up, and as Carmack mentions, you have to confirm Guardian, and in many cases on Quest 2, it'll forget your Guardian, so you have to redraw it all over again. And you compare that to a phone and you just pick it up and you use it. But there's other devices you can compare it to that have similar friction. If I want to play my PlayStation 5, I just pick up the controller and press it, and the TV turns on, and I'm ready to go. And in that time, I'm not blindfolded. I have my phone beside me. So even if I do, even if I'm so impatient that I don't want to wait the 10 seconds, I can sit and scroll on my phone while I'm waiting. It's the same thing for many laptops these days. Obviously, Windows laptops had the reputation for years of taking a long time to boot, but these days, be it a Chromebook or a Mac or a modern Windows PC with a solid state drive, it's up and ready to go in a few seconds. Your television, you turn it on and it's ready to go. There's not This VR has uniquely had all of these setup issues and friction issues, and it's made worse by the fact that you're blindfolded the entire time. So I think this will become a less of a problem when we have high quality mixed reality. When you put on the headset and you see the real world in front of you, high enough quality that you can use your phone even when you're in the headset. But for now, yeah, this is what really needs to be pushed. But a lot of progress has been made here. We have to acknowledge that going from only being usable on a PC or PlayStation to being a standalone headset has massively reduced friction for in the first place. But there's still a long way to go. And Carmack points out, for people to want to use this headset daily, never mind monthly, like the statistics we were talking about, it has to just be put on and go.
Yeah, people asking for clarity there. That's the Boz to the Future podcast. So that's BOZ to the Future. And that would be the latest episode with John Carmack getting into this subject. And yeah, I have to echo everything David was just saying there about all of that. I remember going back to the Oculus Go days and sitting down for an interview with one of the people in charge of Oculus Go and asking them, is this a communications device? Is this a phone? And the PR rep sort of shushed the actual interviewee subject because it was they could tell it was like a question that put Go in a box that it wasn't ready to fulfill yet. Right? And that's been true of all of VR across the board. In the last Oculus or last Connect event, or one event before that, there was a ringing doorbell that happened, and then someone walked into the room to talk with Mark Zuckerberg about something. And VR should, in my mind, it should be that easy, right? It's the equivalent of someone coming up to your front door, knocking on it, or ringing the doorbell, and you're choosing whether to like open the door or talk through the door at the person who's come to your door, with whatever. And do we want advertisers coming to that door, or do we want just our friends? How does that interaction work? None of it happens. None of it works until the headset is that instantaneous, right? This is a completely non-starter conversation until you can trust that the device is charged and as quickly to use as your watch.
Yeah, the one positive I would say here is that with Quest Pro over Quest 2, I've noticed that it remembers my Guardian boundary maybe 99% of the time. So I would expect that it's very likely that on Quest 3 we'll see that continue to improve. If you at least could have it always remember your Guardian boundary, that is an improvement. But there's still that moment of having to hit confirm that you would hope that over time it would become so reliable you wouldn't even need to use that. There's also just the downright sort of software loading time. One of the things I like about Pico's headset is that their system software is just so much better optimized than Meta's. It is snappy and fast, whereas if you bring up the Meta menu, the Quest menu in the middle of a typical VR game, your entire headset will come screeching to a halt and the frame rate will tank, and that's just incredibly disappointing. That kind of thing kills friction because you're in a game and someone invites you to another game and you have to wait not only for the invitation but for the software to even display it, which is just crazy. But this is one of those things I think will die with the death of 1,000 cuts. There will be no moment that VR friction gets solved. It will just be every year progressively the software gets better and the hardware gets faster to the point where this is all just snappy and instant.
So Bosworth in particular has talked about a hockey stick moment, and for anyone that's sort of catching up out there, it's this idea that if you chart out units sold or revenue or adoption of a new technology, there becomes a moment where everything accelerates really, really fast, and it almost happens in a very, very short amount of time where it was happening very, very slow before. And he was hinting or suggesting that Quest 2 is there. What we're seeing in this podcast is Carmack describe what's going to make that hockey stick, what's going to make it go more vertical, right? What's going to make that adoption and the amount of money just go through the roof. And it's really hard for us to talk about this, right? It sounds like, hey, believe us now. We're telling you it's really this happening this time. Like, how do we write those things where, like, yeah, the VR debt is dead, people are idiots out there, but how do we even that out with this is the time really, that actually everything is gonna snowball?
Yeah, I think it is what you referred to earlier, those developer revenue numbers. If you talk to developers, anyone who has a game on the main Quest store, almost anyone, will tell you that the sales that they've seen on Quest have dwarfed the sales on every other platform combined. The success that they see from actual people actually buying their content and using it is just completely on a different scale to what it was with PC VSVR, what it was with PlayStation VR 1, and even what it was with Quest 1. The difference between Quest 1 and Quest 2 from a sales perspective seems to be enormous. We talk about that 20 million Quests sold. From my understanding, the vast majority of that is Quest 2. Maybe something like 17 or 18 million of that 20 million is Quest 2. And so it'll be really fascinating to see how that changes with Quest 3 and that rumored headset for 2024. But I don't think it's a crazy thing to say that Quest 2 is the first mainstream VR headset. It's not all the way mainstream, and mainstream isn't a binary. It's not either on or off, but there are people that I never thought would own a Quest 2. I was at a barber the other day and he starts telling me, I tell him what I do, and he says, "Oh, I have one of those Oculus 2s." And just the number of people that I've run into in real life in completely random context all over the country and all over the world that have a Quest 2, it's clearly something that has gotten to a level that no other VR headset has gotten to, and it's in the same realm as some consoles now. Like that fact that we often throw out, that there are roughly as many Quests sold out there as Xbox Series S and X. So either Xbox Series S and S is this dead niche, or VR isn't.
I love the way I love and hate the way you logically break down things. It's the bane of my day when I have to fight you in DMs about your logic. We're coming up to the 1 hour mark of our show, and I think that's a good time to sort of take the NPR plea approach to our new membership program, right? Please support us, what we do, become a UploadVR member. sustain and support our work on an ongoing basis so that we can do more videos, we can do more articles, and we could forget what clicks mean. I would love to forget what clicks mean. The reason I'm giving that pitch right now is we've got two more subjects to get into here. I'll let Heaney get into the comments here, but these last two subjects are big ones, right? These are long-term people who've been working in VR and AR, honestly, for decades at this point. And, you know, we went through the effort of meeting with these people, talking with them, trying to get what they're doing out to our audience in ways nobody else is in some cases. And we would love to see your support for the work. Share the link out for the VR download when we're live in the future. And thank you so much for all your support.
The very last thing I'm going to say on Instant VR, I know I will not shut up about this. This will become my new thing, but Quest 3 should come with a charging dock. If Meta is going to sell Quest 3 for $500, which it sounds like they will, it would be a huge mistake to not put a charging dock. I think that is, from a hardware perspective, the single most important thing for Instant VR. The idea of being able to just pick up the headset at any time and go, just like you pick up a game console controller, is absolutely critical. And I think any company, any standalone headset company that doesn't include a charging dock is making a big mistake from now on.
And I'm going to take it one step further and say that needs to be a carrying case right after it becomes a dock, right? Like
that should be an accessory. But if you talk about what does it actually come with, I think, you know, the vast majority of headsets are going to be used within the CM home. Should there be a charging case? Absolutely, yes. But I'm talking about what should be there in the box.
Yeah, I get that. All right, so let's get into these last two subjects now. Tilt 5's AR teardown and their multiplayer demo. So I got to see this first at GDC when I did my first bit of travel. It was pretty cool, pretty impressive on a couple different layers that I'm going to break down more on this show. Thank you, Richie. Thank you for support, $20 there from you. Love the content. Thanks. Thank you so much. It really does mean a lot. So Tilt 5's AR teardown and multiplayer demo. I'm going to show a video real quick here of Jerry Ellsworth, the CEO and founder of Tilt 5. We've got some videos on our channel giving pieces of her story. She's got a very storied history in hardware of all kinds, toys, computers, going back decades, and worked at Valve. Basically took her technology out of Valve, co-founded a company, started a company called Cast AR that tried a bunch of different things, made some mistakes, ran out of money. She took the technology again and refined it again, and now that's what's shipping in the Tilt 5 AR device. And yeah, so I'm going to show this video of me visiting Jerry's offices, Tilt 5's offices in Silicon Valley, and trying out the Tilt 5 with two glasses hooked up to one PC, and then this game board out in front of us where our glasses are showing us content sort of above the board and into the board, depth above and below, but only within the regions of the board we can see. And the video that I'm going to show here shows content using Mixcast. So that's a similar solution to Live. And what it does is it shows the camera viewer over there virtual content in places that the user in AR or VR, it's a tool that works in both, can actually see. Now, I've got to put that disclaimer in there sometimes just to get in front of the people complaining. The reason I feel like it's worth including without sort of, like, the reason I think it's okay is because it's still entirely immersive. You've got a giant field of view with the Tilt 5 AR glasses, and it's everywhere you're looking, everywhere that's backed by the board. And you could bring over extra boards if you really wanted to accessorize it and have them expand sort of the believable area for AR content. So I'm going to show this video real quick. I'm seeing a couple people in our comments saying they are picking up Tilt 5, and then we'll come back and talk about it a little bit.
Can you tear down this device and show me how it works?
Okay, let me blow it up a little bit bigger here. All right, I'm going to peel the shell off of the glasses here. I'll take the back cover off. We'll get rid of the circuit boards, get these arms out of the way too. So now we can start going into things like the projection optical system. I'm pulling all these little pieces, like this is the little cover that covers up the optical system. So now we're looking inside the optical system. There's 14, 15 little lenses in there. And so we can start pulling those out one by one and look at them.
You're muted.
Gosh, I've been muted this whole flipping time. How can you disappeared on me, and I thought I was talking. That's
commenters are
miserable.
telling you. You got to read those comments.
I was off trying to fill the air because David Heaney wasn't there. It was the worst possible combination of things. I had to like go into my stream of consciousness mode while muted. That was horrible. Oh my gosh.
You got there's a for people here. There's the entire tablet in front of you has a giant orange indicator when you're muted, and a big red button that says muted.
Yeah, it's a rectangular square, and it's over there, and it's right here, and I'm looking at you, and I'm staring off into space. Okay, this is VR design. This is how hard it is.
The importance of field of view in a headset. If the headset had a wider field of view, you'd be able to see it always.
All right, we'll look at it as a teaching moment, right? It's not my fault. It's the headset's field of view's fault. All right. So since none of that was recorded, I went to Tilt 5's offices after basically got there late in the day on this travel after I had this demo at GDC of the video that I showed. So I basically had the exact demo that I showed in that video back at GDC, and I talked to them at the time, and I said, hey, let's go and see if we can stream or film something, and decided not to stream it live. I almost did it as a stand-in for the VR download, and I thought that would be too technically taxing to try to pull off. But what wasn't technically taxing to pull off, what wasn't a problem, was she turned on this software, and both of our headsets showed us the content, the augmented content, the virtual stuff in the exact same spot. I could point to a spot on the table, she could point to a spot on the table, and it would be the same point on the table. And back at GDC, I was going around to all these booths. I was going to Meta's booth, and they had Demio set up with 4 players around a table. And there was maybe an offset of about this far on let's say an inch or 2 inches from the avatar of a person that was supposed to be in my same space and their physical outline on the other side of the room. That was the level of sync up that they could do in like a production worst possible case scenario for your tracking situation, and there was an offset of just this much in the way they had set up these multiple guardians. We know that multiple people are trying to solve this. I did another demo that was done with the Snap AR platform. They brought over the Snap game, and Snap has this cool feature where you point a phone at another phone, at the QR code on the other phone, and that gets you into the same shared multiplayer match. Apple has its own sort of shared anchor system. None of these things work reliably, effectively, or instantaneously. I have yet to see it work that way. It's a nightmare.
I think Apple's works pretty well.
Well, the argument that I got at GDC was they were using Snap because Apple's wasn't performant that way. We'll see, right? The stuff will get worked out and it'll get better, and then it'll work. But what I want to point out is, like, out of the box, Tilt 5 showed us this content at the same spot. There was no like, it didn't feel like there was room for error on these 2 headsets seeing the markers on the table and knowing where they are in 3D space. It was fantastic sort of to have that light bulb moment of us both being able to go through this 3D model. And that's why I showed this video. It was a surprising thing that, okay, so I gave that short little summary of the Cast AR, so Valve to Cast AR to Tilt 5 story. The lessons that I understand Ellsworth and Tilt 5 have learned is that previous products like Cast AR tried to do too many things. They tried to put in a lot of features and promote a lot of features when it really should have focused in on being this great device for gamers and get that right first. And I think that's what Tilt 5 is trying to do right now. They're trying to prove that Tilt 5 can be a great device for gamers. They're trying to get the games on board. They're trying to get the funding to deliver. And yeah, they're focusing on the single use case. But what I saw at GDC, there's a surprise that, hey, actually, if you just need to look at a 3D model with a couple other people around a table, this might actually have some business use case. And at the same time that I say that, Tilt 5 doesn't want to promote that because of what happened in the past. So it's an interesting sort of situation. At the same time, I also did a little demo that was super early, but Jerry Ellsworth did plug the Tilt 5 glasses into an Android phone. I put the glasses on my head. I walked from one table that was out in front of me, walked into another room where she had another table with a different like reflective board size. And after it, it was beta software, it was barely functional, but it did pop up. I got the visual experience of what I was doing on the other table over on this other table. And I was walking from one room to another with just a wired phone in my hand and an unobstructed view of my surroundings. Like, this is entirely different than viewing the world through the mixed reality of a Quest Pro or any other VR headset, right? I'm seeing transparently the environment around me, and then I'm walking over to a table where it's then presenting content. So there's, again, another potential use case. We're talking a year or two down the road of software development where you could hypothetically go to like a museum and plug the glasses into a phone that you rent out and walk from exhibit to exhibit and see different things at each exhibit. So there's, again, they don't want to promote or talk about this too much, but it feels like there is a route for them.
Yeah, and I don't want to be the pessimist here, but I think that's probably the best route in the end of the day for this technology. As our commenter here, Jack B points out, the Tilt 5's problem is going to be getting content and games. They sorry, Knuckles 904 was the commenter that pointed out. They said the hardware and software is cool and they want Tilt 5 to succeed, but they need killer content to get there, and they're too small to get larger devs to add support. This comes down to the fundamental equation in all of these gaming platforms. If you want developers to target a gaming platform, there needs to be a large number of people who own that. And I think the price of Tilt 5, I've said this every time Tilt 5 comes up, but to me it is still just that barrier. The price is just far too high. For a family kit, it's it's close to $1,000 to get enough for a family, and that's just never going to be a mass market successful product. If they could sell this exact same technology for $250, this would be a stocking filler. This would be probably one of the biggest gaming and family entertainment night gifts in the entire country. This would be a massively successful product, but it's more than triple that, and at that price, I think they're probably better off going for those kind of museum and business use cases that you pointed out, because that instantaneous automatic co-location is incredibly important for that and has huge potential. But you're always trying to get Demio on Tilt 5. It's your big campaign, but I don't know if you've got any response from the developer. But
well, all right, so let's go there. All right, so I was at GDC and Resolution had its booth up where they were showing off Spatial Ops, right? Resolution Games is probably the biggest VR developer, one of the biggest VR developers. They're firing on all cylinders with new content all the time. And Spatial Ops is true magic, right? It is a really, really great idea, and I cannot wait to see what comes of the Spatial Ops mixed reality game. And maybe I'll describe that a little bit because it relates to the sync up thing that I'm talking about a little bit being a problem for VR. About on the other end of the show floor, across the way from Resolution Games, there was the Tilt 5 booth, and I was going over there to meet them, and then I was going over to the Resolution booth, and I come back to the Resolution booth, and I'm talking to their PR representative, and then the CEO comes over and talks to me, and I'm just telling anyone who'll listen, this needs Demio. Like, and one of the people from Resolution Games asked me how much Tilt 5 was paying me to say that, and I said nothing, zero. That's why I feel comfortable saying that. And that's they did buy me dinner when I was at their studio about a week and a half later. So I'm guilty of that, but it is covered in our ethics statement that we accept food. So I haven't done anything wrong there. I got paid in food about a week and a half after I said that to Resolution Games. It's a business decision, right, between Resolution Games and Tilt 5, whether this thing gets, whether it happens. It's a fit, technically, on a technical level. It's the right game that fits the right platform. Tilt 5 probably needs it more than Demio needs it, right?
Yes.
So, like, that's, again, business decision. Tilt 5 needs it more. All that's true. All I want to get across in, admitting my my free food guilt, right? Thank you for the food. That was a wonderful discussion while we ate it. It's absolutely, like, it's really tough to see so much money thrown at really, really bad ideas, right? I'm not alone in sort of looking at this situation. Over at GDC, there was a booth. It was the starkest, cleanest, brightest booth of the whole GDC conference, with fixtures to the ceiling, and there's nobody inside. It was a blockchain booth, right? It had "Life is Game" written on the side of the booth. What the hell does "Life is Game" mean? It means absolutely nothing. Holy crap, it's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. And it's this gigantic booth at GDC. How much did they pay for that booth space? What was the cost of that? And how much is that relative to what Tilt 5 can raise? What I'm getting at here is, like, if you're going to fund a project to go and get the games to make the platform worth it, Tilt 5 seems like the right sort of platform to fund with that push. If you're looking for a project to fund into a place where it can subsidize its hardware to make that investment in its platform for the future, again, Tilt 5 seems like the kind of thing to do it. But it just seems like other things get funding, and I would be very curious to see what happens to Tilt 5 over the next year.
Yeah, I think those sort of crypto projects like that are really the exception, though. The vast majority of things are not going to get money like that for no valid reason. And you said there, interestingly, it's a business decision between Resolution and Tilt 5, but it's not really. It's a business decision solely for Resolution. And when you port a multiplayer game to a platform, you're not only saying that you're going to port it today, you're telling people that you're going to support it with all your future updates. So that now becomes an extra platform that they develop for with every single update. And the overall cost in manpower and person power and money that is there is just, that's just not viable. The platform has to have many more people on it. And, it would be great to see Tilt 5 somehow get a hardware subsidization, but unfortunately, in the world we live in, the only real path to that would be if they were acquired by a tech megacorp, and I don't think that sounds like what Jerry Ellsworth would want to be doing anytime soon.
Well, I mean,
for many
let's
valid
see if
reasons.
Nintendo shows up. I saw a couple people in the comments mentioning Nintendo. If someone from Nintendo shows up and says, I want Tilt 5 on my wall, I think she'll go head up AR for Tilt 5, for Nintendo. But
That's a great point. It feels like it really could be a Nintendo style product. It feels exactly like what their take on kind of VR AR would be. Is something like Tilt 5.
Jerry Ellsworth's head of AR for Nintendo. That's the future I want. I am a proponent of that. I will take free meals and campaign for that across the country.
So it's I really still want to know that question that I haven't heard an answer to, of is Tilt 5's technology fundamentally expensive, or is it just that, with low volume and early adopters, it's expensive and they can in future? I want to see what is the price of Tilt 5 2, or, I'm sure they don't
Well,
call it that,
so
but whatever the successor is, that's the big
I
question
would
for me.
love to sit you down with Jerry Ellsworth, right, and get into that discussion. Throw those questions at her, because like the demo
Yeah.
I did with her was like, it would be really cool to see you get into the technical layer while also putting those questions to her, because she's got thoughts, and she's thought about this a really long time. Like, she is one of these people who is investing in the long haul vision of AR as this huge platform. And going back to all the context you were saying about multiplayer services being such an extraordinary thing to kind of maintain, as we found with Echo VR going offline, right? I get it. It still feels like there's a little niche there in the idea that you could have 4 people around the same table. If you can bundle that into like a starting point for a certain number of games that don't need to have like external server or remote support. Yeah, I think we're ready to move on to the final subject, unless there's any comments you want to get to.
Yeah, we're solely in now that I've actually switched back to Quest 2 for this podcast, because the Quest Pro microphone is just it's just not great, and people have been requesting it. So I've actually been using Quest 2 today, and that means my headset almost ran out of battery. The reason I had to go during Tilt 5 was to find a charger and plug it in. So that's why I left you on your own muted.
So field of view and battery, we've just done a live demonstration of field of view and battery and how it limits social interaction in VR.
The idea that Quest 2, or the idea when Quest Pro launched, a lot of people seemed to believe that it had a worse battery life than Quest 2. I can tell you from this show that is absolutely not the case. The Quest Pro, I can get an hour and a half or 2 hours into this show, and there'll still be maybe 30 or 40%, sometimes somehow 50% left in the battery, because we're not using the face and eye tracking here. When you're not using the face and eye tracking, the Quest Pro lasts significantly longer than Quest 2. So I just want that on the record.
Yeah, so let's move on to Bigscreen Beyond. Are you able to pull up an image for that? No, it has to be me, right?
It has to be you, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to pull up this minute.
Should I explain to our audience? So, it's ironically, we're talking about production value at the start, but because we've actually moved onto our new website, our studio software here communicates with the old website to try and find images. So we're going to have to write an update for this software that will connect to our new website's image library. So for now, that's why we haven't had images. We really apologize for that. We would love to be able to show you images of what we're talking about, and we will as soon as possible.
Yeah, he just built the website, got us the website online. It's magnificent. I can't wait to be able to do some of these things in the studio again. But yeah, so I can't show up the images of how small it is right now. Do go read our article. It's near the top of the UploadVR.com homepage. When I was heading to GDC, I basically stopped off at Bigscreen's offices in Los Angeles area, and made an appointment with them to see Bigscreen Beyond. I talked to Darshan, the CEO there, founder, who's been in this for a decade. He's been in there a very, very long time, honing in on social multiplayer VR. On this idea, we've got Guy Godin, who has more or less been indirectly competing with Bigscreen for years. Not the same products, not the same market, but they're still doing some of the same ideas. And about 3 years ago now, he hit a wall, it seemed, in how far he could take a business that was trying to sell movies or movie tickets in VR, because Meta was not going to sort of be flexible in the amount of money they take per in-app purchase. And it is a pain point for VR overall, that you can't easily buy a ticket and have 5 people go see the same thing. Just last week, we just reported on Peacock coming to the Quest platform, and we made sure to put that question to Meta when other reporters didn't, saying, is this solo viewing or is this co-watching? And they had to say, no, this is solo viewing. So yeah, you can go and watch Peacock on your VR headset, but you can't share it in the same way you could if you were watching it on your phone with another person sitting next to you.
And yet they described it as Peacock comes to the metaverse.
Yes, right. That was
astounding difference between the engineering and the marketing there.
and it's recurring in our audience. So our audience is picking up on this problem where before it was like social VR was the terminology. Now they've used metaverse as like a equivalent term for it, and it's not being applied to social VR, right? It's like it's a misunderstanding of how all this works, and it's really, really stupid. All right, so that's the landscape in which Bigscreen builds the Beyond VR headset, right? That's they're realizing that to take the home theater experience further, they need to build their own hardware. And I've been talking with them for quite a long time, waiting for this demo. And I basically outlined, I don't know, 6 months or a year ago, I said, I want to go in there and see all of Dune in as close to a finished version of your headset as possible. And that's going to be my trial by fire assessment of how Big Screen Beyond works. I did that, right? I went to LA at the beginning of my GDC trip, put this headset on my head, and I didn't come out of it until the movie was over. I took the headset off once to hit start on a recording, and then at the end, I hit stop again on the recording. So that was the only time the glasses ever came off my head. You should go to read my write up on this if you want to see my breakdown of the individual optics and the like kind of drawbacks. If David wants me to get into them a little bit, I can right now. But what I want to talk about is the moment this headset comes off my face, right? At the end of this 2-hour time in VR that we're going to be done with, my face is I'm wearing a Quest Pro, got a cool balanced design, right? I'm going to pull it off my head and I'm going to feel achy. I'm going to feel like a sense of relief. I'm going to feel relieved to get out of virtual reality because of this weight on my head. I brought Big Screen Beyond off of my head after the 2 hours and I did not have that feeling. What I did have was I felt like my eyes had a tough time focusing back on my surroundings. It took me a good 2 minutes to feel like my eyes had blinked back to being okay with what was going on, like just normal vision. He said Big Screen said they looked at the device and saw what was wrong. There was a problem with the focal distance. He said on the device that I tried, said it was a pre-production device from December. They're still taking pre-orders. They're shipping, I think, out in some numbers to some people, but they're still fine-tuning a lot of this. So we need to get a finished, full review device to David Heaney, and that's going to be the ultimate assessment of this. And that's how I kind of left it with Big Screen. I said to them, okay, look, you gave me I've done this with a couple VR AR companies over the years. This is my expectation. My expectation is that I'm going to go into Big Screen and watch all of Dune, and I'm going to come out and I'm going to feel different. And I did. That was my expectation. Big Screen met that. There's a completely different experience versus taking off any other headset and taking off a Big Screen Beyond. The way I left it was, next time I do this, next time I put this thing on my head, I need to come out of it and not feel that bad feeling I had with my eyes. My eyes cannot do that after I come out. And if they can do that, they've got an incredible product, like doing something different than any other headset. That's my assessment of where that is. Do you have any questions that you want to get into in particular here?
The first question I was going to give is, you compare it to Quest Pro, and a lot of people will compare it to Quest 2, but I feel like there's a big gulf all the way down to Bigscreen Beyond at 129 grams, I think it is, and Quest Pro and Quest 2 at 500 and 600 and 700 grams. What about something like Vive XR Elite? I know you haven't tried Pico 4. That's the comparison I really love, but how much more of a relief taking it all, or how much more comfortable was it than the Vive XR Elite, which is obviously a lot more
Yeah.
compact than a Quest 2 or Quest Pro?
Well, I haven't been able to give 5XR Elite that length of time, right? 2 hours, and see how that compares. There were other things that I noted in my review, that, or not my review, my hands-on impressions. I noted in that write-up that this device, but Beyond in particular, is custom fitted. They're like, they've done so much to remove so much weight, just under 200 grams, and like way less than that just in the visor, right? Um, they've done everything they can to just remove all of this, and what they've put in place of all that stuff getting ripped out is, we're going to custom fit this specifically for your face. So I sent them a 3D scan of my face from iOS, and I even got my interpupillary distance measured at a doctor's office to see exactly what the doctor says my vision is. And what I learned from that, the second time I've ever gone to an eye doctor, was that my I knew this previously, but I've got the actual numbers down. My interpupillary distance, if you go from the middle of my face to my eyes, the numbers aren't equal. My eye distance is asymmetrical. So I'm not talking about too many of the negatives I saw on the optics here, because I don't know if it was because this custom fitted device is not made for an asymmetrical IPD. And it's something, if you've got your IPD and it's 33 and 33 on either side of the middle point, your big screen Beyond experience could be quite a bit different from mine.
So we're having three commenters here point out the issue I've actually run into so far, which is this requirement to have an iPhone to scan your face and order it. In some countries, the vast majority of people have an iPhone, namely the US, but there are a lot of countries where iPhone's market share isn't anywhere near significant. And, I've been so busy myself in the past few weeks that I haven't even had a chance to borrow a friend's iPhone and use it. And you're having a few people in the comments say things like that. Greg Snell saying they'd have to steal their neighbor's iPhone, but it might be worth it. So, that is obviously a big limitation. I guess it's not Big Screen's fault, and that the iPhone is the only device that has that kind of face depth sensor. But you'd think there would be some kind of alternative there, at least, that perhaps there is some Android app that you can use computer vision or something. Or it's a very unfortunate situation, to say the least.
Let's see. Shirzad just gave us a donation of $5. Thank you so much. Big Screen states that it can't run full resolution at 90 hertz, even with DisplayPort. It uses a scaling solution. So I don't know if anyone from Big Screen is here to respond to that technical note. I approached this whole demo specifically through the lens I'm describing here, right? I wanted to see if this thing felt different. It felt different, and I worded it vaguely in my article because I can't remember finishing a whole movie in VR. Period. But I had to word it vaguely in my story because it's possible that I did at some point and just forgot about it. But every device I've ever used, I can't make it the whole movie. I made it the whole movie, and I didn't feel bad in the same way every other headset feels bad.
So we have Darshan in the comments talking about that comment, claiming that it doesn't run at full resolution at $5, and he's pointing out that that's not actually accurate. Darshan being the CEO of Big Screen, they're saying the headset always runs at the full resolution of 2560 by 2560 per eye. The compression that's being referred to there is not like a simple upscaling. It's actually the DisplayPort compression that's used on a lot of other devices. And as far as I understand, Darshan can correct me, it's essentially lossless or near lossless. So you shouldn't really see any significant impact there to image quality at 90 hertz.
Yeah, and to be clear, so there was various things I did when I was testing this demo. I mean, I'm going to visualize it here as being about this big, and what I did was I took I think I had an index controller, and I compared. I brought it over to the size of the headset, and like the tracking surface of the controller is larger than the tracking surface of this super slim headset. So like other things that we hadn't even thought about, like occlusion or the number of base stations you might want in your room to really get you into an active game, could change based on like how you use this. Um, it's still like so I did this demonstration with him on video. I drank coffee, I drank cold water, and I laughed as I thought of this on the spot, right? It feels like a cold cup glass of water on a hot day. Like that's the difference of this weight loss. Uh, and I understand all the people being concerned there about all the other things. Wired is dead to me for this reason. It doesn't have included audio output. It has microphones, as Darshan was very clear about. It's got built-in microphones, doesn't have built-in output, even though you can use an accessory to get audio output. Again, they've removed as much weight as humanly possible. Like I think about, I use the AirPods Max for the audio experience here, right? I'll get headaches just from headphones, right? Any amount of hats, right? Like any amount of weight. I talked about this in the article. Any amount of weight on your head is poison. It makes you uncomfortable and hate it. And it takes serious like design skill in order to like make it comfortable on a wide range of heads. And what we're seeing here is a big bet from Bigscreen that custom fitting the device is an area of benefit. Like it's an area, if they go hard on that here, maybe they can route into the market. And that question from a donation earlier in the show sort of alluded to something I brought up in my story, that Vario out there went and pushed resolution as far as they could. Pimax went and tried to push field of view as far as they could. And here's Bigscreen trying to prove that a theatrical movie theater experience can exceed most, home theater experiences, if not wider than home theater experiences.
Yeah, and proving something more widely about the future of VR, and that, it is possible to build a headset that is comfortable enough to wear all day. This is something we've talked about on this podcast so much, these future potential use cases of VR that include using a virtual monitor setup as a replacement for your physical monitors. And the real limitation to that, resolution is going to be solved. We all know that's going to be solved. I don't think anyone doubts that over time the march of technology will get resolution to a point where that's viable. But there's a lot of people who doubt that a headset could ever actually be comfortable enough. And Bigscreen is out there proving that that is not true, that it actually is possible to build a headset that is as comfortable as headphones, or as you say, even more comfortable than headphones. And so, obviously this is itself is a niche product. This is a $1,000 headset that requires a gaming PC and $300 of base stations, or a minimum $150 base station to run. This is not something that is in any way mass market, but it doesn't have to be. It's proving out a point. It's proving out that one day headsets will be both. One day there will be headsets that are wireless, standalone, and this size. And maybe it will require a puck. Maybe it will be that, the wire that goes to it is just going down to your pocket, or even some sort of neck brace, or even, for a gaming context, a room scale gaming context, maybe it's just a pad on the back of your head. But it is possible, and eventually it will get there. And I still think there's a lot of room for headsets that are comfortable enough for 1, 2, 3, 4 hours, that are, a lot bigger and heavier than Bigscreen, but also a lot cheaper. And I think this is going to be another one of those gradual things over time. It's not like a headset needs to be this weight to be usable, but it needs to be a lot lighter than a Quest 2 or a Quest Pro. Those headsets, we just know they are so heavy that even after 30 minutes, a lot of people are going to get uncomfortable. And big screen has proved you can get something that you can do 8 hours and not be comfortable.
Yeah,
Or
so he specifically talked about that in our interview, that his target is 10 hours. That because it means that you're spending longer than the workday and you're using it for other purposes a little bit too. And he thinks that for a certain segment, that small segment of buyers, they're not targeting 1 billion users, was something he said. They're going to maybe get some of those people to the 10-hour a day mark. Those people who are
yeah.
the very front line of VR, and I could totally see that. And I'm seeing people ask about tracking pucks, and we're gonna have to get into the state of tracking pucks soon, because there's the whole new generation of inside out tracking pucks competing with this sort of tried and true generation that is useful to a very small audience, but they're perhaps some of VR's most engaged users.
Yeah, but regardless, I do kind of laugh at this idea that people are talking about strapping a tracking puck to the top of this headset. The entire point of this headset is to be as light as possible. The tracking puck weighs about as much as the headset itself. You're going to double the weight of the lightest headset ever just to
And it's
not
got
have
the
to
same
use.
VR tracking sensors built in,
Yeah,
so it's like
exactly.
it's not a
Just buy a base station for the same price. Just buy
yeah.
one base station.
But I did, at the end of the demo, I did try a few minutes of Half-Life Alyx. And again, I just want to convey like this balanced view, and Darshan is completely upfront and sort of, he's in our comments right here, communicating with you all. So if you have any questions, get them to him. This is not like, this is an enthusiast's VR headset, right? Like, this was built by an enthusiast who's been at this and believing in it for a very long time. And it's in the same way that we were talking about Tilt 5 and what they're doing. Like, that's an enthusiast product for AR. These are people who have been there doing things parallel to Meta this whole time, and Meta gets so much press because of their investment scale. We really want to shine a light on what these other companies are doing, while being completely cognizant of exactly where they are. And yeah, I want to just reiterate, next time, if I come out of Beyond without that feeling that I had of my eyes focusing, they've got a great thing there. That was my reservation after trying it.
The headset I'm really interested to compare this to in the longer term isn't anything from Meta, but Apple. I really wonder, to what extent is this movie watching, co-watching, virtual monitors usage going to be something that Apple focuses on? And will Apple be able to match the rumors that they will actually be able to do this with a wide field of view, OLED micro displays with a 120-degree field of view? Where will that balance come along? How comfortable will the Apple headset be? How many hours will I stay in the Apple headset compared to the big screen Beyond? And, to what extent is the value proposition there? What if big screen Beyond is $1,000 and Apple headset is $3,000? How does that all factor in? Especially given the fact that, the Apple headset will be standalone and may have these other mixed reality capabilities. That will be a real fascinating one there. And I think, that may end up being big screen's biggest competitor.
Yeah, I
maybe.
appreciated the it's interesting that you contextualize it there with Apple. I've been trying to use SharePlay, and when it works, it's magic. It is really cool, and I've had fights with Kyle on previous shows over this thing. You can go down the list of things like karaoke, of shared activities, that if you have access, if both of the people in VR have access to the same music library, the same licenses, you could have a lot of like emergent activities occur, and they don't have to be exclusive to the headsets, right? You could have them on other devices with people who are in headsets. But I want to bring this a little bit, circle back to Meta, right? And the Peacock situation there, right? Meta is going through a transitional period right now where all indications are that they're laying off another huge round of people. And they've had to make long-term product choices about which headsets they're going to build beyond the new Quest 3 that we expect this year. We don't expect them to get to Quest Pro 2 for some time. but we've heard rumors of another device that could follow up Quest 3 pretty quickly and still be in the low end of the area. And coming back to this previous discussion of what if, like, what are the benefits of disconnecting so much of the weight from your headset and having it be in a pack on your side? Uh, I wonder if Meta is revisiting or thinking about some of those things when we get to this next device.
So, just to be clear, when you say come after Quest 3, we're talking about something that would reportedly be sold alongside it at a lower price as, a Quest Lite or something like that. The key to understand is that that separation that you see in Magic Leap 2 and reportedly in Apple actually costs more. That's something that is very unlikely to arrive in any low-end device. Being able to send that much data and power, not having the chip be directly beside the displays, all of that adds quite extraordinary cost. Even doing the split design of having the battery in the rear like Quest Pro adds cost. And I remember hearing that a lot of the cost in HoloLens, or not a big cost factor in HoloLens was the fact that they had their compute in the rear and they pipe it through to the front. So maybe will the Quest Pro 2 have something like that? That's a really interesting question. But I think
Well,
the low end is still going to be everything is in your face.
yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so I get that. I think what I wanted to convey or think about is what from this demo might a bigger player try to steal, more or less, right? Like what could they learn themselves from this particular test? And I do want to say thank you to Darshan for coming to our comments and engaging with our readers. We love the quality of our discussion. It's what we're doing here. Again, thank you so much to our members and everyone who's supporting us. Darshan saying here about the minimum spec. I used Beyond for 2 years on a 3080 Ti, and I was very happy with it. Only Microsoft Flight Simulator was a struggle on that particular hardware for Beyond. Back to the thing I was saying about what other headset makers could learn here. I do, fitness is the thing we always come back to, and I want to see this lightness on a fitness device too. Like I think it would be such a great matchup, I guess is where I'm going with that.
I do want to push back on Learn here. I think this is a really interesting device, but it's not like there's some kind of fundamental tech breakthrough in here. All of these big companies will have a device like this in a prototype somewhere. It's, pancake lenses and OLED micro displays. That is what makes this possible. It is the combination of pancake lenses, OLED micro displays, and a custom fit. Will big players take that idea of a custom fit? The problem is obviously it doesn't scale. A big player, they all care about whether it scales or not. Even the idea of having to restrict it to only iPhones is something that no big player will ever do, except for Apple, of course.
So there's two ways you could view my IPD situation here with what I've found with Bigscreen Beyond. You could view it as like a mark against Bigscreen, or you could view it as them saying, we actually need to go even deeper and harder into this vein. Your comment, like, I get the custom fitting, it's expensive, but we're talking about your perception of your surroundings, and you're talking about affecting it for 10 hours a day. This is a prescription level at least device, and I think all the big players probably have these devices in a lab. It seemed like you took a little too much away from the fact that Bigscreen is out there in the front trying to prove a point. Like you're saying that everyone else didn't ship this for a reason.
Well, I'm saying that there are many of these big players, clearly from what we know from supply chain sources, plan to ship headsets that use OLED micro displays and pancake lenses, but this is something, Apple is reportedly doing the same with a different balance of where they, have the lens field of view and the OLED micro displays. I'm just saying that, like,
Darshan is in our comments said, has anyone else shipping a 28 ppd micro OLED based headset?
No, but you didn't say, is anyone else doing this? You said, will these big companies learn from it? It's not about, I'm not saying that they're not doing this. They are doing this. They're out there doing it, and they're shipping it, and they are the first. I'm not taking any of that away from them. I'm just saying, it's not like any big company is going to go, oh wow, we never thought of this, OLED micro displays and pancake lenses. It's been, again, I'm sure this is an engineering marvel. I'm not taking away from big screen. I'm just saying on a bigger level, this is not something unexpected. This is OLED. The idea of combining OLED micro displays and pancake lenses has been talked about in VR as the obvious sort of final step, or at least next step, since 2017 or earlier. This is something
Sure.
that is
Well, I mean, varifocal. We can go down the list of all the different
Yeah.
things that have been like explored in headset designs, and the only one that's making it is this self-contained, all-in-one, everything on your head brick. And I think it's it proved a point. The device proved a point. You even said it in your own words, right? This did prove a point about headset weight. And I appreciated your context. How does it compare to Vive XR Elite? And I want to bring it back to something Darshan is totally upfront about. I'm using the Quest Pro. We complained about the field of view even on this device earlier, right? Affecting my ability to even look at something that's right here when I'm looking over here. Edge-to-edge clarity on a Quest Pro, it is crisp over here at the edges of my field of view. It's crisp right here at the center space where they meet. It's crisp up here. It's crisp down here. Bigscreen Beyond is a step backwards from that. I'm pointing my eyes around this device right now instead of moving my head to focus my whole head on these clear spots. Meta has invested billions in developing this optical stack of clarity. And going back to what you were saying, if they can combine that with some of the lightness out of Beyond, then they've got a huge competitive problem for Beyond. The question is, can Beyond get enough here to keep going to the next stage?
From the signs of it, it's going to be years until Meta releases another Quest Pro, and I think it's pretty much certain that the next Quest Pro will use OLED micro displays and pancake lenses. The original current Quest Pro already uses pancake lenses, but combines them with these sort of traditional LCD displays of, I think they're 2.5 inches with LED, mini LED backlighting, right? So they're obviously huge displays compared to what's used in something like a Beyond. But just to come back at something, I think there's a slight misunderstanding here as to the advantage of custom fitting. It's not that it improves your visual experience more than an adjustable headset, because if an adjustable headset has eye tracking, you can adjust it to that exact same adjustment in the custom fit. The advantage is that you don't need all of that adjustment mechanism, so you can make the headset as small as possible. The custom fitting is the magic in big screen. It's the fact that they can do that and make it smaller. And that's why, I think it's incredible as a niche product, and I'm definitely going to be getting one myself, obviously. And I'm plenty of VR enthusiasts I know love this idea that you can get rid of all this weight and bulk by custom fitting, but it's not going to scale. That doesn't scale. You can't build a custom fit product that is pushed out there for $300 to $500 for the Christmas season, and that's fine. It's okay. Not every company has to make a mass market product, but the big players do, and that's the only reason I'm saying I don't think they're going to look at this particularly.
I want to make sure I'm contextualizing what you said right. You're saying that it doesn't scale. What I'm trying to convey is that Apple has the scale, and maybe Google has the scale to build some of these things at potentially a loss. It could cost them more to add these things over time than they get it. But if someone's going to it could be a brick wall. It could stop big screen, I guess, is I think what I'm at least alluding to, that big screen might have to expend huge amounts of money to keep doing this approach in future designs, whereas a company like Apple, that's pocket change to them to do the same thing.
Well, it's not even the cost, it's physically manufacturing it. You could not manufacture a product for tens of millions of people that you're custom fitting down to the exact millimeter for their optics. It's just, I don't think that's viable. That's just not something that can be done in mass production. Imagine that every time you ordered a PlayStation 5, they had to build the controller to exactly your hand shape, and they actually changed how wide they made the controller and how deep and where they placed the buttons to custom fit your hand. Would it be great? Yes. Could you actually produce you know, 40 million PlayStation 5s at the same sort of speed that Sony wants to sell them? Of course not.
I get that premise. I think I'm just saying the watch and the AirPods are like our first clothing that's really fully computerized, and we can debate all we want about whether you can get AR out of those things, but clothing, like, you do have multiple bud sizes that come in some of the headphone jacks. You do have these little things that try to make it better. You've got multiple watch sizes for multiple wrist
Yeah.
angles. I get, like, there's certain places to make those choices. I guess what I'm wanting to convey that, like, it seems like there's a path over the next decade to just build that out more and more and more, so that it really is, we do arrive back at where we are today with big screen.
That's something I really do think we could see. Onakazi puts it here: 3 sizes fit all. I could definitely see a headset from a big player in the next 5 to 10 years being sold in 3 sizes. You know, for your interpupillary distance, you have small, medium, and wide. And if you have lenses that have a large enough eye box, and maybe even they can be adjusted ever so slightly off their pivot so that you have a very compact and low weight adjustment mechanism that doesn't actually move the lenses through the entire range of IPDs, just a tiny little bit. So you adjust it to your exact IPD on a tiny little pivot. That's something that we could definitely see. It's something that I think Palmer Luckey was trying to publicly argue for in the years that Meta was, or that Facebook at the time was producing these fixed IPD headsets like Go and Rift S. He was saying, why not at least produce multiple sizes? That's something that can happen. 100%. You can produce, as you say, the Apple Watch is produced in multiple sizes. You know, the iPhone's produced in multiple sizes. Tablets. It's just when you start to get to, you know, producing something to the exact sub-millimeter position that it just gets unscalable. But yeah, I wonder if that's something we could see the big players pick up on, different sizes.
Minority Report spiders. That's all I'm saying. I don't remember. I can't figure out what that's referencing, but I do know what he's talking about. Like, that's a memorable image. There was one. Oh yeah, have a little drone come visit you and scan your face. That's what the spiders are for. But I liked Wabo's comment here. Watch sizes are not anywhere near as specific and impactful as millimeters for your eyes. And
Yeah.
that big screen, that was part of what big screen proved to me. There was that difference is fairly dramatic in this wide eye box thing that others are kind of like focusing on as their trade-off there. I can't wait to see what this other approach arrives at over time.
For sure. It could also be something for AR glasses. Maybe there's ways to build AR glasses that are more viable, that can arrive and give wide field of view by just having a tiny eye box and just saying, we're going to literally build these things to precision for your eyes, and you know, screw the eye box. We'll just make something that doesn't care about eye box.
Yep. Well, I want to say thank you again to all of our members, both on YouTube and our site. Thank you for your support. I think we've seen more money given to us directly in this show than I've ever seen before. It truly means a lot to us. Support our journalism, support journalists everywhere. Make sure, we're going through a transitional time in technology, unlike any I've seen, between the combination of AI changes that are happening on a daily basis, as well as that hockey sticking effect that's happening with VR right as we speak. And we are doing our best to stay in front of that for everyone in our audience and beyond. You know, you as our supporters, our readers, are going to go out there and inform a lot of your friends and family about how this all works, what's good about it, what's bad, and we want to be on that journey with you. So thank you so much. Anything you want to get into?
I'm just trying to figure out if you're using the word beyond as frequently as possible in the show on purpose. I think you've used it quite a few times.
Beyond? Am I?
Yeah.
He didn't pay me for food though. I guess I got coffee and water, but I didn't get a free meal, unfortunately, from.
Yeah.
So like, I guess my ad rate is not. I've got to come up with some consistency here in how many calories per mention that we're going to come up with. So
subliminal advertising.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so
The
much
last
to our audience out there. This has been great to get back at it. Thank you so much, Heaney, for the incredible studio that you've got here, as well as the incredible writing space that you've made, and this new place for our audience to interact with us. Really, really, really appreciate it. Yeah. Anything
the last
else?
thing I was going to say is I'm just very excited to get a final unit of Bigscreen Beyond to review. I'm not interested in reviewing pre-production prototypes or anything like that. I don't review non-final units. I want the final hardware, and that's what I'm going to review. And I will give you as detailed as technical impressions as I can. But yeah, extremely exciting device that's solving one of the biggest problems in VR, and I can't wait to review the final version.
Yep. Please get that to us as soon as you can, Darshan, and Heaney
Well, I
will
have to
get
go
his
steal
face
someone's
scan to
iPhone
you.
first.
Yeah, right. As soon as he gets his iPhone face scan, which is sacrilegious, right? That was one of the things I learned at SIGGRAPH, right? You only get OLED phones from Android that you can turn off the whole brightness and not use any battery power. That's how hardcore you are on your Android OLED love, right?
Yeah, well, all the modern iPhones are OLED now too. It's more just a personal preference at this point. I'm not a fanboy of either. The thing I would say about, if we're going to talk about the smartphone wars, is I think they are far more similar than they are different. The convergence of Android and iOS over the past decade has been pretty crazy. They are almost the same device. Let's be real.
Well, yes, legally side loading is right at the cusp of like making that the same across the entire board. Let's wrap this up. Thank you so much. We'll see you in the future. I'm seeing some Spock fingers out there, but I still cannot do the Spock fingers. So brutal meta. Come on, I got to be able to do Spock fingers. Live long and prosper. We'll see you in the future.
Thanks so much, everyone. Thank you for joining us again. And yes, we will try to make this show weekly again now that we have the new website shipped. Thanks so much.